Lily Morgan was the kind of girl who disappeared without a sound, but somehow her eyes kept watching from the window long after she was gone. Daniel Reeves looked like an ordinary man, the kind who fixed things for a living, yet inside the walls he repaired. He built a secret no one was meant to find out. Mrs. Harrison's death had left her house empty, but her absence only made space for something darker to move in, something that would turn Maple Street into a place of whispered fear. The neighbors of Maple Street thought they were seeing a ghost, but what they were really witnessing was a desperate cry for help that no one understood until it was far too late. Maple Street had always been the kind of place where nothing ever went wrong. The houses looked nearly identical, their lawns trimmed to perfection, their porches lined with flowers that never seemed to wilt. Children rode their bicycles down the sidewalk, dogs barked at passing cars, and the neighbors exchanged polite waves before retreating back into their tidy lives. It was a peaceful neighborhood, the kind people moved to when they wanted to escape the chaos of the city. But peace has a fragile edge, and on one cool autumn evening it began to crack. It started with a single sighting. A woman named Martha, who walked her dog every night at the same time, claimed she saw someone standing inside the old Harrison house. The house had been empty for years, ever since Mrs. Harrison passed away. The property had fallen into quiet decay, paint peeling from the shutters, the mailbox rusted shut, and vines creeping up the brick walls. Nobody ever went near it anymore. Yet Martha was certain she had seen a figure there, framed perfectly by the upstairs window. She described a girl, thin and pale, with long brown hair that hung loose around her face. The girl didn't move or wave. She simply stood there, staring out at the street below. Martha froze for a moment, unsure if what she saw was real. The dog tugged at the leash, and when she looked back, the window was empty. By morning, everyone on Maple Street had heard the story. At first, people treated it like gossip, something to whisper about while picking up the mail or raking leaves. But then, others started seeing her too. A teenager walking home from school swore he saw her eyes glinting in the fading light. A delivery driver mentioned the shadow behind the curtain as he passed by. Even those who laughed it off couldn't deny the chill that crept over them when they walked past the house after dark. The police were eventually called. 2 officers arrived, walked the perimeter, and even shined their flashlights through the windows. They found nothing. The doors were locked, the rooms were empty, and there were no signs of trespassers. They assured the neighbors it was probably a trick of the light or kids playing pranks. For a brief moment, the neighborhood exhaled, but peace didn't return. Each night, someone new claimed to have seen her, always behind that same window, always still and silent. Her expression never changed. Some said she looked sad, others said she looked scared, and a few whispered that she wasn't human at all. The longer it went on, the heavier the air on Maple Street felt, like a storm that refused to break. The Harrison house became something no one dared approach. The street that had once been full of laughter now seemed to hold its breath every time the sun went down. And behind that dusty pane of glass, the girl continued to watch, as if waiting for someone to finally see the truth. 3 weeks after the first sighting, a missing person report began circulating across nearby towns. The name was Lily Morgan, 17 years old, last seen leaving her school on a Friday afternoon. Her backpack was discovered near a highway exit 2 miles from her home, but her phone had been turned off and there were no witnesses. Her parents pleaded for help on local news stations. their voices trembling as they described the daughter who would never run away. Police launched an investigation that spread through nearby neighborhoods, checking bus stations, parks, and motels. But Lily had vanished into thin air. At first, no one on Maple Street connected the disappearance to their mysterious figure in the window. The two events seemed worlds apart, a missing teenager and a forgotten house. But the similarities crept in slowly. One morning, as residents gathered near the mailbox, an elderly man mentioned how the girl in the Harrison house looked almost identical to Lily Morgan. Another neighbor pulled out a printed flyer with Lily's photo, holding it up to the window from across the street. The resemblance was undeniable. Long brown hair, slender frame, a quiet, almost distant expression. The rumors started again, louder this time. Detectives decided to revisit the Harrison property, this time with purpose. The air inside the house was heavy, filled with dust and the faint smell of mold. Their boots echoed through the empty halls. The living room still held old furniture covered in white sheets, untouched since Mrs. Harrison's death. But upstairs, something changed. Dust trails were interrupted by footprints, faint but fresh. They led from the staircase to one of the back bedrooms. The same one neighbors claimed to see the girl in. Inside, the officers found a thin mattress on the floor, a cracked mirror leaning against the wall, and a sandwich left half-eaten on a paper plate. The bread was stale, but not old enough to have been there for long. A water bottle sat nearby, and next to it, a small comb. It was clear that someone had been staying there, not just passing through, but living. Every sound in the house suddenly seemed amplified, every shadow too deep. Yet there was no sign of Lily, no body, and no trace of where she had gone next. When news of the discovery spread, panic overtook curiosity. Parents told their children not to walk alone. People began locking their doors earlier, drawing curtains tighter, and avoiding Maple Street entirely after dark. The Harrison house, once a symbol of local legend, now felt like something darker, a place that swallowed secrets whole. Days later, an officer driving by claimed he saw movement in the same window once more, just before dawn. But by the time he stopped the car and looked again, the glass reflected nothing but his own face. The figure was gone. Whether she had been real or imagined, no one could say. Yet, deep down, the neighbors began to believe that Lily Morgan had never truly left. She was still there, trapped behind the window, silently pleading for someone to find her. The investigation took a new turn when detectives began piecing together everyone connected to the Harrison property. The ownership records showed the house had remained in limbo since Mrs. Harrison's death, managed by a small maintenance company that occasionally sent workers to check on it. One name appeared repeatedly in the files: Daniel Reeves, a handyman in his mid-50s who had been responsible for minor repairs, yard work, and inspections. He was quiet, dependable, and never caused trouble. To most people, he was invisible, a man who blended into the background. When police questioned him, Daniel appeared calm. He claimed he hadn't been to the Harrison house in months, insisting he had no reason to return since his last maintenance visit. His answers were simple, polite, and rehearsed, the kind that revealed nothing and invited no suspicion. But there was something unsettling about how easily he dismissed the questions about Lily Morgan. He said he had never heard of her, never seen her picture. The officers left, unsure whether they had just spoken to an honest man or someone skilled at hiding lies. Later that week, investigators checked nearby surveillance cameras. A gas station less than a mile from Maple Street held the key. In the footage from late September, a familiar pickup truck appeared, Daniel Reeves's truck. It was caught on camera at 11:47 p.m., heading toward Maple Street. The date matched the first night the girl had been spotted at the Harrison house. When confronted with the footage, Daniel faltered. He muttered something about checking the plumbing and routine maintenance, but there were no official work orders to support his claim. Police obtained a search warrant for his trailer home on the outskirts of town. The place was cluttered, dimly lit, and smelled faintly of oil and damp wood. Old tools, car parts, and stacks of newspapers filled every corner. But in one drawer, buried beneath a pile of envelopes, detectives discovered something far more sinister: several photographs of the Harrison house. Some were taken from across the street, others from directly outside the window where the girl had been seen. The dates written on the back matched the weeks Lily had been missing. Then came the discovery that sealed their suspicions. Inside a small tin box under his bed, police found a silver locket engraved with the initials LM. Inside the locket was a tiny photo of Lily Morgan, smiling beside her mother. Her family confirmed it had been hers. The evidence was overwhelming, yet Daniel continued to deny everything. As the news spread, Maple Street erupted in fear. The man everyone thought they knew, the quiet worker who fixed fences and unclogged drains, had suddenly become the center of a nightmare. The police took Daniel into custody, but questions remained. If Lily had been there, where was she now? And if Daniel had taken her, why did he keep returning to that empty, decaying house? Behind every photograph, behind every lie, there seemed to be something even darker waiting to be uncovered. After Daniel Reeves was taken into custody, detectives returned to the Harrison house determined to find whatever he had tried so hard to conceal. This time, the search was not quick or casual. They went through every room, stripped away old wallpaper, and lifted loose floorboards. The once quiet house became a scene of relentless investigation, filled with the hum of equipment and the heavy footsteps of officers combing through years of dust and silence. Each corner seemed to whisper a memory. Each shadow held something the daylight couldn't erase. In one of the upstairs bedrooms, the same room where the girl had been seen, an investigator noticed an odd detail. The wall behind the closet sounded hollow when tapped. The wallpaper there was slightly uneven, as if it had been pulled back and smoothed over again. It was enough to raise suspicion. Within an hour, the team began dismantling the section piece by piece, carefully cutting through the plaster. What they revealed behind it stunned everyone. A small hidden space, barely large enough for a person to stand in, had been built into the wall. Inside were signs of life: an old blanket, a few scattered food wrappers, a small notebook, and a flashlight whose batteries had long since died. The writing on the walls was what stopped everyone cold. Scratched into the plaster with what looked like a nail were faint, desperate words: "Help me." There were several others, incomplete sentences, faded from where fingers had rubbed against them over time. It became clear that Lily had been here, alive, frightened, and trapped. The air inside that tiny room felt different, stale, heavy, suffocating. Every investigator present understood they were standing in the place where her final days had unfolded, still, there was more. In the corner of the floor, half hidden by the blanket, was a loose panel of wood. When they pried it open, a dark cavity yawned beneath it, a trapdoor leading down into the basement. The stairs were narrow and rotted, each step creaking as they descended. The air grew colder, the smell of damp earth stronger. The beam of a flashlight swept across broken furniture, old paint cans, and finally, something pale and still in the far corner dot. It was her. Lily Morgan. Her body lay curled beneath a torn sheet, as if she had fallen asleep and never woken up. The silence in the basement grew unbearable. An officer gently picked up the locket she still wore. The same one found in Daniel's trailer had clearly been hers, but this one was different. Inside, there was a piece of paper folded so many times it was almost disintegrating. It held only a few words in shaky handwriting. He promised I could go home. When the officers emerged from the basement, no one spoke. Outside, the wind moved through the empty trees, carrying a chill that settled over Maple Street once again. The truth was out, but the horror of it lingered, trapped within the walls that had hidden her for so long. The truth spread quickly after. Lily Morgan's body was found in the basement of the Harrison house. News vans crowded Maple Street, their cameras flashing as investigators carried evidence out of the decaying building. Reporters spoke in hushed tones, trying to capture the grim reality of what had happened inside that quiet home. For the neighbors, it was unbearable to realize that the girl behind the window had been real all along. She hadn't been a ghost or a trick of the light. She had been alive, right there, reaching out in the only way she could. In the weeks that followed, details of Daniel Reeves's actions began to emerge. He had met Lily months before she vanished, while fixing a broken pipe at the diner where she worked part-time after school. He had seemed harmless, friendly, in a quiet way that made people feel safe. When Lily had a falling out with her parents and stormed out one night, he offered her a place to stay just for a while until things calmed down. What began as an act of kindness turned into a trap. He led her to the abandoned Harrison house, telling her it was temporary, that nobody would find her there. But days turned into weeks, and the promises never came true. Daniel began locking the doors, taking her phone, and controlling when she could eat or sleep. He made her believe that leaving would bring trouble, that nobody was looking for her anymore. The hidden room behind the closet became her prison, and the window became her only glimpse of freedom. Each night, she stood there, staring out, hoping someone would see her and understand. Some did see her, the neighbors, the dog walker, the passing delivery driver, but no one truly believed what they saw. During the trial, Daniel showed no emotion. He sat still as the evidence was presented, the photographs, the locket, the handwriting, and the haunting words on the wall. The jury took less than 2 hours to deliver their verdict, guilty on all charges. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was silent as the judge spoke, but in the gallery, Lily's mother quietly wept, clutching the folded piece of paper that had been found in her daughter's locket. It was the only message Lily had ever managed to leave behind. The Harrison house was demolished months later. The town council decided it was better to remove the reminder of what had happened there. But even after the debris was cleared and the land was leveled, people said Maple Street never felt the same. Some swore they could still sense a presence at dusk, the faint outline of a girl near the spot where the old window once stood. Whether it was imagination or something more, no one could say. The story of Lily Morgan, The girl behind the window became a cautionary tale told in whispers. A reminder that monsters don't always hide in the dark. Sometimes they wear a familiar face, living quietly just beyond the light.